Hey there, Corporate Misfits. Brittany Darrington here, and welcome to episode 23 of the Corporate Misfit podcast. I am so excited to talk to today's Friday feature, who is Jen Moff, who is a personal leadership and identity architect. Jen is going to be sharing with us how she left her 9-to-5 to start her own business doing what she loves. Since 2011, Jen has been able to overcome anxiety, depression, and PTSD from emotional, mental, and sexual abuse from generational strongholds and poverty. She has been able to manifest 6 figures since 2017, and she has also been able to really hone in on her gifts and help others within their relationship. She's living her best life, and I can't wait for her to share with you how she left her 9-to-5 to start her own business. Let's dive in.
You're listening to the Corporate Misfit podcast with Brittany Darrington, where female entrepreneurs can get powerful tips and advice on how to start, launch, and grow their business.
Jen, I am so excited to have you on Confessions of a Corporate Misfit. Oh my gosh, our audience and our viewers are in for a treat today because I know you are going to share just so much amazing information. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jen.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have a good time.
Yes. Now, Jen, you have overcame a lot to start your business. Can you first tell me how you got into doing what you're doing now and helping others to manifest the life that they want?
That's a great question. And it's a long answer, which I'll condense into something very simple. I had a bit of an existential crisis. I was on the other side of an abusive relationship and working for a company that wasn't inspiring to me. And one summer in, I think it was 2012, I was sunbathing on the 4th of July and heard this divine download: you're going to take over Tony Robbins' job. And my spidey sense was like, and I heeded that bit of guidance and immediately started thinking, okay, that sounds exciting. What does that mean? And so what that really was showing me was everything that I was going through up until that point and since has not just been for my own benefit. And I'm really passionate about sharing my journey and what I've discovered to be able to help support other women to empower themselves at a level that they might only just be dreaming of.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of women actually, they dream of leaving their 9-to-5. They dream of starting their own business. It's one of those things where you're like, you're not sure what to do or how to do it. How did you go about leaving that job that was just not serving you well?
Well, it was an interesting time. I was working for an AT&T franchise, and they were the 3rd franchise I'd worked for. They actually started a leadership and development program for the management and training team. And I fell in love with that stuff because it was kind of appropriate to how I was starting to think on my own. The ironic part was the more I fell in love with what they were teaching, the more I realized I don't need to be here anymore.
I need to leave.
Yeah. And I was living in a city that I had relocated to for work. And the job itself was an interesting one, but the circumstance for the company was changing too. And so they wanted me to relocate again. So it was, do I relocate with the company again and stay in this space, or do I just take a leap? And the leap meant I didn't have any savings. I didn't have a real plan. And I would have to move in with my parents at 30. And the idea of the latter scared the crap out of me, but I knew I couldn't just continue on this coasting by somebody else's ideas of what I needed to be doing. So I gave notice, and about a month later, I moved in with my parents in a retirement community.
I love that. I love that you added the retirement community.
Oh, yes. Yes. It was an experience.
Now, wow. Okay. So you're 30, you move in with your parents, you make that decision to leave your 9-to-5 and go out there and go for it. What fears or challenges did you have that kind of just came out during that time?
Girl, like I said, I was already like knee deep in like some soul searching and dark nights of the soul. So having that to contend with as well was really intense. Some of the stuff specifically that bubbled up was like, because I was going through a big spiritual shift too. How can I make money doing these things? How can I, sell something? What is it that I'm going to sell? What am I trying to do? What is this next first step?
Yeah.
And I was scared about claiming entrepreneur as a label for myself. I was scared about how I was going to survive financially while I got this thing off the ground. I was nervous because I did not have a very good support system in terms of encouragement and just empowerment from peers and family members and things. So it was tough. I was definitely feeling very isolated and in my head about a lot of those fears, for sure.
And how did you overcome that support system? Because I will tell you, so many new entrepreneurs, especially, and even established entrepreneurs, we don't necessarily have the support sometimes. And so how did you overcome that?
Oh, this is a fun story. So I was living with my parents, like I said, and they really wanted me to get a job, and love them. They still talk about me getting a day job. Like just yesterday I had this conversation, but they knew that it was hard to find something in the community where they had moved to. And so I had a connection to a local Ruby Tuesdays. Friend there helped me out, and I started interviewing. I didn't want to do it, but it would get my parents off my back a little bit. And I remember having the third round of interviews or something with the GM, and he just looked at me and said, we're going to make you into a server. We're going to fast track you to management. And he just started spewing all these things, like very money focused. And because of where I was at the time, it really didn't resonate. So I get home, my parents are like on the edge of their seats, like, ooh, so how did it go? And so I'm telling them and just regurgitating the information. There's no life, no excitement. And my dad's sitting there and he says, Jen, that sounds like a great opportunity. And I said, it sounds like hell. And I ran away crying into this guest bedroom that I was squatting in. And I went to a neighboring community a couple weeks later, met with some friends at a networking event, and there was a speaker there, and she gave a talk called The Power of No. And
ooh, is that Lisa Nichols?
No, her name is Kristen Hadid. She's based out of Gainesville, Florida.
Okay.
And it was interesting because her no's were through her entrepreneurial journey and how she overcame them to see her success. But for me, it was about embracing all the no's that people were telling me and the no's that I had told myself. And it was time to start saying yes to me. So I get home, I'm feeling on cloud nine, and I'm just ready. And I sit my parents down and I gave them a talk, and I said, you know what? It's important for me to do this. I know. And as I'm saying this, I can see their body language is very fearful. They're concerned for me. I'm their kid. They want to make sure that I'm taken care of. But I stood there and I said, it's more important for me to follow the calling that has been placed on my heart than it is to make you happy. And it was the hardest thing up until that point, and in some ways since, that I've ever had to do. There was a lot of tears on both sides, but it was an extremely important moment for me to kind of draw a line in the sand and speak my truth, so to speak. And it helped kind of pave the way for them getting on board and showing some support in a way that they hadn't been previously.
Wow. That's amazing, because what happens sometimes is we go into our shells and we become this little turtle, and we're like, okay, we don't have the support. Okay, let's go back into our shell. And I love that you kind of just took control of the situation. You're like, this is what's going to happen, and this is how we're going to go about this, because people can control the way that they handle their support systems. And you can either eliminate that as a expectation to receive support from them, or you can kind of sit down and have that come to Jesus moment, like what you did, of like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we can go about this. And I love that. I mean, even though the tears came, but I love that, because so many people don't take control of how they can handle that support system. So yes, love that.
Yes. Thank you.
In 2017 though, things were different for you. I mean, you have manifested some money, girl. And a lot of people, I know, like a lot of people don't understand what manifesting is. So first of all, can I just take a step back? Can you explain that for someone who has no idea what you're talking about?
Sure. So to me, manifestation really has to do with being in alignment with who you are, your desires, and setting intentions and taking inspired action, not just any old action. It needs to really resonate with you. It needs to support you and your big picture goals, and it needs to come from within. But taking those actions that are going to crystallize those desires and make them happen. Sometimes I'm sure you've heard that it's more like, oh, let's just set this idea out there and then things are just going to magically show up.
Oh yeah. Or the app, or I'm only going to say my affirmations and this is it. And I'm not going to fully believe it, but I'm going to just say my affirmations and things are going to happen and come my way.
Right. You know? Right. It's two-sided. There's a masculine energy of doing, and then there's a feminine energy side of the awareness and the being state that you have to embody to really pull all of it together.
I agree. I know. And my audience knows that I am really big on this. And I believe like, for example, I will not only take some time to just meditate, but I will sit and like, I'm going to ask for what I want, and I'm going to put it out there and get crystal clear on what I'm asking for. And I'm going to also ask to like remove the things that keep me from being in alignment with it, whether it's resistance or fear or things like that. Like, how do we move those areas so that I can actually get into alignment with where I want to go? Are you a fan of Abraham Hicks? Have you ever heard of them?
I am familiar. I have not read any of that work though. I've more just kind of scoured around the peripheral, if you will.
Yes. Well, I just love that you mentioned like alignment and really making sure that you're in alignment with where it is that you want to go. Because what happens when we leave our 9-to-5 sometimes, we have no idea what we're doing, and we have no idea where we're going with what it is that we thought was going to be a great idea and turn into a business. And then we sometimes are like so far from alignment from where we want to go. How would you recommend like a new entrepreneur who's looking to leave their 9-to-5 and turn their business into like something, into an actual business? Well, how do you recommend that they get into alignment with what it is that they're looking to do?
Oh, this is fun, actually. I am a huge fan of soul work or shadow work, or basically digging to the root of certain beliefs or mindsets, or even inner wounding loops, as I call them, to just find out what is driving certain attitudes you have, the values you have, the beliefs you have, the decisions you make or don't take. And that really starts with being curious about yourself. I found that the more self-aware I get, the easier it is to call myself on my shit, so to speak, and notice what it is that is an excuse that I'm making for myself, that kind of thing. So for me and for all of my clients that I work with, it's really important to start with just getting curious, not in a judgmental way, which is why mindfulness for me is so important in my work too.
Yes. I love that. Mindfulness is so important. I don't think people realize that you can actually do so much when you actually have it and implement it into your life. So 2017, it was like the year. What happened that year, and what did you do differently that you were doing from maybe some of the prior years?
It's interesting. The year did not start out very well. It was not the way it ended by any means. Basically, I set an intention at the beginning of every year. I grasp onto a word, so to speak. So the year of 2017 was the word desire. And it was really important for me to tap into those things, recognize those things, and follow those things. And so sometimes it was very small in just putting together my first retreat. Sometimes it was bigger in taking a side job that had nothing to do with my own business. And I didn't anticipate doing that since I left the 9-to-5 in 2012. And it kind of shocked me, but it felt so right. And I got really excited about something again in a different way than I had for a while. So I allowed that to kind of propel me forward. And so I started working for a company and relocated to Boston because of it. So I was living in Florida. I'm now based just outside of downtown Boston, and I'm no longer working for the company, but it was clear that I needed to be here.
Wow.
And I left earlier this year. I am so grateful for that opportunity. And my business is poised to do so much more than I've ever imagined because of it. And it was because I was willing to not look at something so rigidly, like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur now. You know, you get these kind of ideas like, oh, I can never take another job because that means I failed as, you know, being able to get my shit off the ground.
Exactly. And
Right.
I think that's so hard. I love that you're saying this, because so many of us, sometimes we run into cash flow issues, or we run into being able to keep our business afloat, and we become so prideful of I cannot go and work a part-time job because it means I didn't succeed.
Preach.
And it only hurts us, because like you said, like, you were open and you were willing. And like, something that I believe is, like, when you can be open and willing, it helps you to get into alignment with where you need to go. And sometimes you don't know the whole reasoning of why you're doing that. But your question, I mean, it's not for you to sit and say, well, why? Well, why? Just kind of like go with it and see what's coming from it. And then ultimately it reveals itself.
Exactly. Like what you were saying before about manifestation, that's another thing, like releasing the details of how things are going to happen. Like if I had been so rigid and like proud that I wasn't willing to take this opportunity or follow through on that desire, then I could still be in Florida. I could still be in a place that I was last spring. And I am so much happier and better off now. So much happier. And you know, it just works out. It really, really does.
I love that. Now, did you have a business plan when you moved to Boston? Did you have a business plan in place, or did you use any sort of planning systems or strategies to help you to get started and get everything up and going?
I tend to rebel sometimes from a little bit of formality and structure. So it's kind of a dance. I didn't have a business plan. I know what feels good for me, and I know what has worked well for me in the past. I've got a good presence online, and I knew that an area of challenge would be I'm in a city that I don't know anybody. So I have to start networking in this community and getting to know people, and not just from a place of, hi, I'm a business person, let's talk about business. Cause that doesn't resonate for me and doesn't attract the right people that I want to work with.
Absolutely.
So networking has been a big piece for sure.
Now, let's go back to what you were just saying on networking, because a lot of people sometimes when they go into business, they want to attract everyone and anyone. And I did that in the beginning. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you bring your nightmare like customers. It's like,
same.
like, who and why are you trying to work with me? And I don't want to work with you. And you want to fire them. And you're like, wow, how do I fire you? So how did you narrow down who your target and your ideal audience was going to be?
Oh, so fun. Just like you, I didn't tighten it up initially. And some of it was because I didn't know who that ideal client was that I wanted to work with. And so I just kind of allowed myself to play until, like you, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to fire some of these people. Crazy. But it was slowly over the last couple of years that it's really begun to crystallize. And I've always known I've enjoyed working with women, because I see so many women that are just not in a mindset of personal power and creation, that it breaks my heart, because I can see what is possible for them, not just possible, but what's probable. And recently I just completely solidified everything, and I'm like, okay, this is exactly who I want to work with. This is my soulmate client. And some of that was just by reviewing all the other clients that I've worked with and saying, okay, what were things that I loved? What were things that I would have wished were a little bit different? And by just evaluating that pool of wonderful women, I was able to say, this kind of person would make me the happiest ever. I'd love to support them and assist them with their transformation. And so that's how I decided that I was going to commit to single women who are either full or part-time entrepreneurs. And they have kind of started dating their business because they don't have time for personal life, relationship, self-care, and they really want more for themselves.
Absolutely. And I find that so many of us too, in the very beginning, we go into business, and some of us go into business to have freedom
Mm-hmm.
or to be able to live that life that we want. But instead it turns into you're working 90 hours a week and you're working Monday through Sunday. So I'm like, oh, so how do you help your clients to um, live that life that they want, the life that really brings them true happiness?
So it is different for everybody because, we're all walking our own path. But
Yes.
the first thing that we always start with is reframing what mindfulness is, because it is the core part of my work and my method.
Mhm.
So much of what is taught right now around it is that it's, a philosophical or religious, historical, that's where its origins are historically. And then
Mhm.
only in the last 40 or so years has it been brought over to the West, but it's been turned into something that's a little more clinical, so to speak.
Mhm.
And it's focused on what you lose. You lose all of the stress. Yay, great. But what is it that you're gaining?
Mm.
So for me, I always start by doing a lot of exploratory work with people to find out, what is it that you actually want? And then based on that, we'll use mindfulness to remove a lot of that toxic shame or core beliefs that aren't supporting those things.
Mhm.
And once we have that in place, we can really start to expand out with a bunch of other opportunities and tools.
Ooh, I love this, because what sometimes we don't discover within ourselves is like, why are we doing the things that we do? And like you said, when you take time to like really discover that, like I
Yeah.
know when I first started working, started my own business and working within it, I was working 100 and something hours a week. I mean, just
Whew.
nonstop.
Yeah.
And it took me back to my childhood when I really took that time to like identify where is this like workaholic coming from. It
Mhm,
took me
mhm.
to, yeah, it's like, it's crazy. It took me to my childhood to where I grew up in a single mother household, and I watched my mother always work and work and work and work because that was something that she needed to do at that time to help
Yeah,
support her children. But
right.
it's something that I adopted. And
Yeah.
I was like, my only way to make my business successful is like work, 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 like my mom did. My mom did it. She was able to become something from working hard and working hard. And
Mm,
secretly, it was like, whoa, you got to take a break. You got to take a step back. Let's look at
mhm.
this. Why are you doing it? So
Yeah.
I love what the work that you do, because it is, gosh, that's so powerful to help someone to kind of see like, is there shame? Is there guilt? Or what is it that you're feeling, you know?
From a spiritual perspective, there's what's called the mother wound, and that is passed generationally through women in your family. And basically, it teaches us as women that we have, in order for us to be successful, we have to operate like men.
Mm.
And when we can't do that, then that reinforces the shame and the guilt. So it's like it sets up this cycle for, disempowerment and lack of success. So one of the key things that I'm doing with my clients right now is reminding them and teaching, so to speak,
Mhm.
how important it is to tune into yourself and
Mhm.
to do business your own way, which is going to feel good and not have you working 100 hours a week, because
And
nobody's got time for that.
I know, and you're not healthy when you do
Mm-mm.
all of that. You burn yourself out. Now, you just mentioned that you really help people to build kind of that life that they want. Do you recommend when new entrepreneurs are going
Mhm.
into business that they kind of sit down and just write out like, what's the life that I want outside of just business alone?
Yes, I think dreaming for me is especially important. I've learned the hard way that I kind of cut myself off from that. So it's really important for me. And anything that I find that's a tool that I use, I immediately want to share that with anybody that I
Love this.
can. I actually have on the wall up here an ideal schedule for the week, what that would look like for me in just a normal weekly lifestyle, when
Mhm.
I'm fully booked and when I have all the vacation that I want and all of the hobbies built in, like exactly what that would look and feel like, because that gets exciting to just imagine for yourself, for
Yes.
sure. I'm sure you've done similar.
Yes, I love, like, I create like vision boards and different things that really allow me to kind of see, like, what do I want my life to look like this upcoming week, this upcoming month, this upcoming
Mhm.
year. And when you take that time to do it, it allows you to kind of take a step back whenever you do run into those moments of like overworking yourself or feeling guilty when you say no to a customer that you know is not right for you, or
Right.
things like that. It just helps you to kind of keep things into perspective and really ultimately build that life. I mean, that's why a lot of people do go into entrepreneurship, to build the life that they want outside of just work, you know?
Absolutely. It's kind of like, simply put, it's just about boundary setting, because
Mhm.
otherwise, if you don't have an idea of where you're going, then you're taking on those clients that you don't want to be working with. And then you end up answering calls or emails in a time when it doesn't feel good to you and you're already drained, and then resentment builds. And then that's not a good experience for you or for anybody else.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, how do you market to your ideal customer? A lot of people struggle with marketing, or
Mhm.
they don't fully comprehend on, like, when you start your business, sometimes you're the salesperson, the marketing person, and everything else. So how do you market to your audience?
It's changed over the years.
Mhm.
As I've leveled up, I've tightened up how I approach that. I have a degree in communication and public relations. So some of that marketing and those initiatives were kind of formally taught, but in reality, it doesn't work the same way as it does in a classroom.
No.
And so I've really embraced social media, but I know that I can't be everywhere at once. So I like to pick two or three main places where I can actually be live, and then the other places I automate. Um, I also make sure that those places that I spend time and am visible, I actually don't call marketing marketing. I call it my being seen strategy.
Ooh, I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
um, and I want to make sure those two or three places are places I enjoy, like the platform, the people that are there, all of that stuff. And then there's also, like the Venn diagram, my people that I'm looking for are there.
Mm.
So sometimes I'll test out joining different Facebook groups that might be where I'd have like my ideal customer. If I go in and I kind of search through the posts and see that there's really not anything, I might leave and it just realize that's just not the aligned spot for me to hang out.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's certainly, more formal things to think about, like opt-ins on your website and funnels. And I don't think, I know this. There's a point when scaling like that and building those automated pieces is very important. But there's, again, this patriarchal masculine way of doing things that I think women have bought into for so long that I see. I'm sure you've seen it too. There's this, okay, you've got to do this next thing to make sure you're visible and all this stuff. But if you're not getting just base clients just because you know how to build relationships, that's really where you need to start.
Oh, I
Because
agree.
all of the time that you're spending investing your energy and just resources in this funnel thing over here, when you could just be spending time getting to know people and being visible and being seen in who you are as a brand, that's
Mhm.
going to attract way more people than this virtual funnel thing that nobody
I
may even be seeing.
I agree. I went through like the whole funnel thing, just for anyone who has no idea what a funnel is. A funnel might be a funnel might be where you generate a new lead. It could be through an opt-in or through several
Mhm.
different ways, in person, whatever. And you then start to send them a series of emails, or you send them a series of ways to stay connected to your product or service, or you or in your personal brand,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. But what I have found, when I did a sales funnel very masculine way, I actually lost a lot of people who were more of my ideal customers.
Wow.
Hmm. And
That's interesting.
I was so I was so like, this is the way you got to do it. This worked for so-and-so. And then when I went back, it's crazy. Like you said, like you have to do what works for your business. When I went back, I noticed that what I was saying was not something that would even resonate with me. What I was saying was forceful. And what I was saying did not, to me, it didn't provide as much value as it really should have. Whereas I'm a person who loves to provide value. So I love that you mentioned like the whole funnel thing, because sometimes it does not work for your business. Right. Sometimes it does and it doesn't. Sometimes hanging out and getting to know someone and have a real relationship with them is better for your business versus the whole virtual funnel.
Yeah. So, I'm all about technology and SaaS software. Like let's build all that stuff out, but do it when it's aligned, you know, and sometimes it's just going to be a little while before that makes sense to actually start implementing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love that. Now, what about managing your time? Because I'm sure that trying to figure out how to handle all of this and run your business, how do you manage your time?
I love playing with this. When I was working for that last AT&T franchise, they got me started in kind of like a weekly planning. I at that point was just building something in Excel, mapping out like, what am I going to do every day during the week, including block off time for reviewing the week and planning the next one. And I have done that consistently every week since 2012.
Wow.
I no longer use that same like Excel document. I've played with a couple of things. I use Google Calendar, and I've even created a calendar within it called time tracking, because there's periods where I would start to notice myself not being as productive, or time would get away from me and I didn't know what I had actually done with it. So I started using the calendar in there that I had created to track my time and just see, what was I actually doing with it? How much TV was I watching? How much Netflix was I watching? How much YouTube videos? How much time was I spending like consuming versus creating or supporting? I did that for about 3 weeks and then realized, okay, I know where I need to make some tweaks. And so I stopped needing to do that. Currently, I'm using the Best Self Planner, which I
love a good planner.
Oh, girl.
I will like spend money on a planner. Which one do you have again?
This is called the Self Journal.
The Self Journal. Okay.
By bestself.co. They don't have a logo. But it's a 90-day planner, and it's different than a lot of the one. I used to use one by Leonie Dawson. I've used a Plum planner that I've built before. I've created my own, but this has been different because it allows me to start like the quarter. What is my big goal for the quarter? What are the 3 milestones that I need to make sure happen to achieve the goal? What are 3 action steps for each milestone? And then you have a weekly plan section for like goals and things. And then you have a daily, which is unlike anything that I've done before. So at the end of every day, I review how the day went. I identify wins, I identify lessons learned, and then I go back and plan out the following day. And they subscribe to almost like a cash model for accounting, like block out every last minute of your day. So you just know what's expected for yourself. And that has worked really well for me. There are days where I just kind of say, I'm just not feeling this for whatever reason. And I'm allowing that desire to kind of tap in and say, what is it that I'm feeling led to do today? And some of that is usually about engaging with people online and just doing that more relationship building stuff, which I never know how long is actually going to take.
I love that you have a planner and that you really block off your day all the way down to the end of whatever it is, whether your work schedule or your day. But that's something that so many new entrepreneurs, we're trying to figure that out, because it's like, okay, I came from this corporate world. I came from this 9-to-5 where they told me what I had to have done, and they scheduled those meetings that I had no control over. So now I have to make my whole day around that meeting or whatnot. So now with you being able to say, I'm going to tell myself I'm going to do this, this, and that just makes it so much easier for especially the people who are really big on scheduling and making sure they know exactly what they're doing every day. Oh, I love that. I'm going to link that journal as well, because that's something
For
that
sure.
I think we should all try out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because there's, like you said before, freedom has been a big motivator for me.
Hmm.
And sometimes there's days when, I'm not feeling in a headspace to even deal with any of it. And
Hmm.
so a lot of that mindfulness work has allowed me to say, okay, I know that I wrote out this entire schedule for myself, but I'm okay in acknowledging that that's not going to happen the way that I thought it was going to. And sometimes the depression or anxiety in the past might have gotten to me. In the last month, since I've been doing some other mindset work and energy work, it's really been a lot easier. But
Wow.
ultimately, there's been days too when I don't stick to the plan at all,
Hmm.
and that's okay too.
You go with the flow. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about you just mentioned depression, and
Mhm.
something that I believe a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes face in their business. I mean, there's
Mhm.
just so much weight put onto what you're doing. How do you handle the days that are extremely tough? The days
Mhm.
where you feel like, what am I doing? I can't do this. And you feel that internally or inside. How do you handle those tough moments internally?
For me, anxiety, I actually have some Post-its over here.
Mhm.
So I tend to procrastinate when I'm
Mhm.
feeling anxious. And when I'm feeling depressed, I tend to check out. So I'll know that those kind of phases are sinking in when I delay doing something that's hard.
Mhm.
I perceive as hard anyway. And I'd rather just get up and move immediately to the couch and watch Netflix all day by myself and not even look at the business.
Mhm.
And for a period, I think it's important to acknowledge those things and allow yourself to experience that,
Mhm.
because if we deny emotions that we're having or an experience and don't let it come forward, it's going to sit in the body somewhere, and it's going to show
Absolutely.
up in some way, um, probably in a more intense way, frankly, than the original. And so I am a big fan of just allowing myself to experience and to feel what I need to.
Mhm.
As I do that, I do tend to utilize what I call when the suckies strike kind of worksheet.
Uh-huh.
And I've got a list of about 8 things that I can utilize when it's really important to um, step back and say, okay, what self-care things maybe I could start implementing. So if
Mm.
that means I need to get outside and walk around, if that means I need some social time, if that means I need to take a shower or an Epsom salt bath, or whatever it is, I immediately kind of go to my toolbox and say, clearly I need some nurturing, and there's been a bit of an imbalance there. So I use those tools,
Mhm.
and it helps me more and more, so that the next time I catch pre-burnout early, so I don't get into the headspace of anxiety or depression as
Mhm.
quickly, and it doesn't last as long either.
Oh, I love that. And that's such great advice for someone who may be facing that. I know for my own self, I've had just even days where I'm like, I couldn't even get out of bed.
Yeah.
At one point in time, not this business, but a prior business that I started years and years ago, I hated it. I
Mm,
hated what I had created. And
isn't that
I
crazy?
I know, isn't it sad? Like, you created that, and
Yeah.
I hated what I created, and it just became one of those things where I started like dreading work. I started dreading doing anything. I began to dread helping people and even providing my products to them. And eventually, over time, I got so deep down in that. And
Yeah.
hearing you talk about, like, okay, being able to catch that ahead of time and really being able to pay attention to some of the phases that might come about and might lead you to the depression, the anxiety, and the overwhelm. I
Hmm.
love that, because it's so true. Because I mean, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're not meant to be isolated. We're just not, or we're not meant to try to do things on our own. And it's okay to figure out what is it that you need to help you overcome that situation and that time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
oh, love that. Now, what advice would you give to a new entrepreneur who's just getting started?
Mm. uh, I think if I was talking to somebody that was brand new right now, the first thing that I usually hear from them or tap into is the why they want to do it. And I always want to remind everyone that if you want to be a success in business, you have to be a success with yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Lord knows every entrepreneur that I've talked to has agreed with me. I'm sure you will in some way.
I agree 100%.
It's
100%.
you have to be willing to do the work on yourself, or you're never going to get to whatever that success thing looks like for you, because it's out here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're over here, we've got to take the necessary steps to get there. And that starts within, for sure.
Absolutely. And sometimes we have those limited beliefs that we don't realize that we have until we start to identify, like, oh, okay, I'm going to go out there and start a business. Like I had some money block limitations for myself. Like I was always afraid, like, I don't think I should charge this much, or, I feel bad for telling my client that they have to pay for my services now because I've given them 7 free sessions and things like that.
Like, I don't like the conflict.
I know. So those limited beliefs that we can sometimes have on ourselves, we have to really, kind of get clear and identify them so we can be successful. And that takes work and self-development and really being mindful of what's going on within us. So, so powerful. Now, what's your favorite part about being your own boss?
Oh, I was talking to somebody about this Tuesday, I think. I like autonomy so much because as a person who was in abusive relationships and had someone use power and control to keep me in this small mindset, it's so important for me to feel free and to have that autonomy and to make the choices about what I do at any given moment with my life, with my business, with my relationships, whatever it is. That's a big one for me, for sure.
Okay, Jen. So how can we stay connected with you?
Perfectly easily, thankfully. If you can spell JenMoff, then you can find me online. My consulting and speaking website is thejenmoff.com. And if you're a single solopreneur and you want to level up, you can get more information about working with me and the other resources that I have related to Magical Mindfulness at magicalmindfulness.com.
Oh, I love this. And I will make sure to leave a link for our audience to be able to stay connected with you. I have enjoyed my time. Thank you for joining us on the Corporate Misfit podcast, Jen. You have been lovely and you have inspired so many of us. Thank you again.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I had such a good time. So excited to see all of these come out.
Yes, thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Jen on today's Friday feature of the Corporate Misfit podcast. If you have not subscribed, go ahead and do so. You can subscribe on any of the major podcast platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or even Google Play, and so much more. So go ahead and hit subscribe so you can be notified every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday of our new episodes of the Corporate Misfit podcast. Also, make sure you check out the Corporate Misfit Club, where we help you to start a business doing what it is that you love and ultimately quit that 9-to-5. So go ahead and check it out. It will be in today's show notes so that you can learn more about the Corporate Misfit Club. I'll see you on Monday.
If you've enjoyed today's episode of the Corporate Misfit podcast, we invite you to check out the Corporate Misfit Club. The Corporate Misfit Club is the essential resource for female entrepreneurs who are looking to start or grow a business they actually love. Whether you are a seasoned entrepreneur in your startup phase or simply thinking about taking the leap into entrepreneurship, we've got your back, girl. With our extensive course library, monthly training, exclusive members-only discount perks, and unlimited tools. We also have a supportive community of women where our members share stories, experiences, their wins, and business tips. The Corporate Misfit Club is the perfect place to be to start, launch, or grow a business. So check it out at corporatemisfitclub.com.